So I don't know many of you, so you probably don't know me. So I'll start by just giving a little introduction so you know where my journey's taken me. So I'm originally from Australia, and I began meditating when I was 19 in Buddhism. And, later I'll tell you a little bit about why I shifted to Raj Yoga, but then I came into Gyan in Australia in 1977 and moved to Hong Kong in 1981. So I was just about 23 years old and went off to start an English-speaking centre in Hong Kong. I was asked to go for 3 months, but ended up staying for 21 years. As our Brahmin life often becomes something like that. And then I went on back to Australia for a few years, looking after one of the retreat centres there. And then to Cambodia. So I was living in Cambodia for 4 years. And now I stay in India. I've been living in India for the last 6 months, working on the project that Nizarbai introduced, the future of power. So of course power has been a subject that's been on my mind for some months. And I don't live in Madhuban. This is kind of my base, but in 6 months I've been here less than 1 month. So I've stayed in Indore, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, and travel to many other places for some of these mega programs and different things going on. So the topic today is self-empowerment for self-progress. And we've just completed a retreat for the guests of the future of power. The future of power, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the whole thing behind that is awakening the Kumbhakarnas. And interestingly, Baba in 1975, when there was hardly a dozen double foreigners, a very small group at that time, Baba said the main service of the double foreigners is to awaken the Kumbhakarnas of India. Kumbhakarnas, you know what that means. Those who are maybe sleeping in their own, way. And so it's very interesting that after 36 years, we're finally taking on this project. And the other thing is Baba keeps emphasizing that we should bring the mics. So the future of power, just to give you a little background of that, is a very interesting storyline, because what the storyline is that India was a great power. And then over the centuries, the power has gone from India to other countries. But now we see that power is coming back to India. India is being seen as an emerging world power. So when we invite the VIPs to this program, and this is my kind of service, to go and meet the VIPs, VVIPs, we are aiming at a very high level, to invite them to a dialogue to talk about what is power, and to talk about what is the future of power in India, and to give them the challenge that with the great spiritual heritage that India has, is it possible for India to change the whole meaning of power? Because now when we hear the word power, in the world anyway, it often means abuse, corruption, very negative connotation. I'm sure you find this even when you are doing the meditation course. We talk about power and people often say, what do you mean by power? because it hasn't got a positive connotation. So what this project is about is changing the whole paradigm, the whole meaning of power, so that power can be something benevolent, that power can sit beside peace and love quite comfortably. So it's a very interesting project, but it brings us to this whole question of what is power. And in the dialogue, Neville, who has been involved in this project from the beginning, Neville from the UK, he was speaking at the end of the dialogue because we talked about the future of power. And he was saying that to these VVIPs who came here, only 17 ended up coming for the retreat, but he was positioning the BKs as having probably the main speciality of the Brahma Kumaris is self-empowerment and supporting other people in their self-empowerment. And he was making the point that without the infrastructure, without the whole organization giving him support over what's now more than 25 years he has been practicing Raj Yoga, but without that support, he couldn't have changed himself. Because as we all know, this whole process of self-transformation is a very big job, isn't it? I mean, I've been practicing Raj Yoga now for 34 years, and a few years before that, 2 or 3 years, quite seriously practicing Buddhist meditation with the aim, I think one of the main aims that many of us come with is self-transformation. And yet still, I can see there's still so much change that's needed. So it's a very big thing to bring this self-transformation. And so I think it's quite exciting that we're doing this particular project, and I keep finding more and more relevance for the BKs to be involved in such a project of the future of power. And as somebody said, because now power is often seen as political, economic, and so we have been positioning this power as spiritual. But of course, spiritual often gets interpreted as religious and something gets lost there. But one of the participants was suggesting that we use the word humanistic. And I've been thinking about this in the last 1 or 2 days also, humanistic power. Because sometimes even with spiritual power, we can get a little, I don't know whether we can say too detached, and lose a little of our humanity. Have you found that sometimes in your dealings in the Brahmin family, that sometimes we're so spiritual that we're not often human? So it's an interesting thing to start exploring power. So, some years ago, I've worked mostly, I would say that in my spiritual journey over all these years, I have worked mostly, I think, started with self-respect and focused on that as like the core of my efforts, and then moved into love, gentleness, more on the kind of softer side, I would say. And then one time I felt that I was almost getting eaten up in a certain situation. I thought, I think I have to work a bit more on the powerful side and not just on all this gentleness and love and these things. So I started to think about, how can I become more powerful? And I don't know what you think when you think about that. How do you become more powerful? I think we often start to think, I have to start getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and meditating, and often it's this kind of a thing, how can I become more powerful? But I believe that the main basis of power is consciousness, what's called smrti, or in Hindi that's also translated as awareness. You know, it's a word that I think is the closest word to meditation, I would say, is awareness. And so power really comes from our awareness and opening, what we talk about, opening the third eye and seeing and being very clear. And living in Hong Kong, living in Cambodia, working mostly with people from the Buddhist tradition, there's not any concept of God. So often the teachings that we've been able to give most has been more meditation than yoga. And I do see these as different. I see meditation as getting to know myself, understanding the faculties of the mind, the intellect, the sanskars. We have such wonderful tools for self-realization, self-awareness, self-empowerment that we can use and we can share with others, even if they're not ready to take on the whole thing of God. And so meditation itself is such a powerful tool. But just going back to, for my own experience, why after practicing Buddhist meditation for a few years, I was still looking for something else. Because in the Buddhist meditation, it is meditation. It's, all about the self. But there's nothing like yoga. There's nothing like connecting with a higher power. And this is how I would see the difference, that yoga is this connection. And it's helpful because a lot of people who have no concept of God, they say, do you have to believe in God to learn this Raja Yoga? And I say to them, well, you can learn meditation. We teach meditation. And this will help you a lot. And if, over the time you see that, you want more power, it's a matter of connecting, and that's yoga. So I think meditation is great but limited. And yoga is accessing an unlimited source of power beyond ourselves. And so, this whole thing of awareness, mindfulness, as they often describe it in Buddhism, being conscious and being awake and being aware, is the first step towards self-empowerment, because also Baba says that unless we know ourselves, we can't really know Baba. Unless we are soul conscious, we can't be God conscious. So this is the first step to self-empowerment, self-awareness. And this is something to practice on a moment-by-moment basis, because it's just like this word enlightenment. It's often seen to be something that you reach at the end of your journey, but it's something every minute we can be more enlightened about something. So in the same way, more conscious, more aware, and seeing through all the illusion that we're just surrounded by. And just to bring it down to one very practical example, in this journey of studying love for many, many years, after studying love, one time I was sitting in meditation for a yoga bhatti for 2 hours, and I sat in meditation, and this thought came very clearly from somewhere, not from me. It was kind of like, one of those thoughts that pop in, and the thought and feeling was, I don't love anyone, and no one is to love me. And I thought, that's very strange after all these years of working on love. So of course, this is the wonderful thing about our practice, that we can go into these feelings that feel so true and so right, to try to understand them. So I went inside to try and understand, what does that mean? So the whole thing of I don't love anyone came to be an awareness that I am love. It's not a matter of loving anyone. It's just like a flower is fragrant. It doesn't really give fragrance. It is fragrant. In the same way, I am love. And no one is to love me. The feeling was, I am in God's eyes. I belong to Baba. And Baba was talking yesterday about this whole thing of being faithful, being loyal, like a wife. You know, a wife should not attract other people's, attention to herself in the sense of like getting people to love her. So that was the feeling, that I'm loved by Baba and I don't need to be in anyone else's eyes. It's in fact not pure for me to try to come into somebody else's eyes, because I'm already married. This is the loyalty, this is the close relationship with Baba. And it was a very beautiful feeling of just being in Baba's eyes, not needing, not wanting to be in anyone else's eyes. And then, that was many years ago, that this kind of, I would say, realization for myself and the awareness started to shift in that way. But recently, I think many of you might have seen this book by Mike George, The 7 Myths of Love. And that's been like reinforcing this awareness that, do you think we need love? If I can ask you, do you think we need love? Do we need love? Do you need love? Who says yes? Who says no? And the others, not sure. Is it? I think this awareness is, I'm thinking about this in the last 6 months or so, is such a shortcut and such a high awareness that I don't need love. Because we cheapen ourselves, we become weak, we look for others to empower us, to give us something when we're trying to get love. But I am love. Am I not love? I am a soul. I am a being of love. Do I really need love? Do I? So this is the kind of awareness that I think we need to, be coming into, that we really know what we're doing. Because if we're still feeling that I need love, we're getting trapped all the time in looking to others, trying to get something from the outside. And we can't be in a powerful awareness if we feel we need love. Do you agree with that? We cannot be in a powerful awareness and at the same time be feeling, I need love. It doesn't go together. I am love. That's powerful. And even when we come to the aspect of yoga, do we need Baba's love? Big question. Do we? Are you sure? If you sit in yoga and you feel, Baba, I need your love, are you sitting in soul consciousness? Are you sitting in self-awareness? Are you? Because self-awareness tells me I am love. I am a soul. I'm a being of love. If I sit in yoga with the experience I am love and connect with Baba, the ocean of love, I can have yoga, which means union. If I sit in yoga and I say, I need love, is it not a little bit like bhakti? What do you think? It's a bit like a prayer, isn't it? Oh God, give me love. I need love. What do you think? Anyway, at the end, I will hopefully give enough time for questions because, it's interesting to explore this. But certainly I can say that my awareness of having a more powerful awareness that I am love is helping me a lot. And again, going back to awareness, this is why I'm giving this example. Awareness is power. Because when I feel I need love, I'm not in a state of power. When I feel I am love, I'm in a state of power. And you could say peace, you could say anything, it's not just love. And in fact, it's only a little variation of I am a soul. It's just a different variation from I am a soul. But why I've found love interesting is because all our interaction on a relationship level comes down usually to love. Whereas maybe soul consciousness is perhaps a little bit abstract. But love is something that, I'm kind of aware of needing or having or wanting or giving. It's something that I can't escape from. But the other thing that this, brings us to is the aspect of, what I was talking about, the illusions. When you start to see that the whole of especially the advertising world and the consumer, yesterday we were hearing about consumerism, in the talk on the environment. So we are being manipulated all the time to believe that we need love and that you'll get it by, doing this and that. In the worldly sense, it's often you will have more love if you wear these clothes, if you have this car, if you use this mobile, or, that's the very consumeristic kind of way. But we get even I think BKs get manipulated to some extent, but of course not as much as I would say people in the world. But if you are not aware that I am love, I don't need these things to be loved, you can get tricked, manipulated into consumerism. But in the BK world, sometimes it's like, if I dress in a certain way, if I behave in a certain way, if I do this and I do that, then I'll get love. So we also can come into some manipulation. Is it true? Is it true? A different kind, perhaps, but still trying to please, trying to be accepted, this kind of thing that is not self-awareness. So just to, to bring that as an example of awareness, because I think if we feel I am love, then we can see through a lot of the games that are going on in relationships, the games that are going on in the world of consumerism, many things. It's like we can see through these trappings. So awareness is one thing, and awareness affects our attitude. So we have all kinds of attitudes that, we are kind of living with, and we can have an attitude, well, maybe just to bring it down to, again, to share an experience of being a victim. We can feel that we are a victim, or I had a situation not that long ago where I was feeling pushed out, right? And if we start to feel pushed out and we go into those feelings and emotions of feeling pushed out, then we can feel very sad and abused and lonely, and all kinds of emotions will come up. But what happened is that, again, the awareness just switched. I think it was Baba's help, because this does happen, I'm sure you all experience, but from feeling pushed out, I felt pushed up. And it was so powerful. Like Baba says, Jivan Mukti in a second. I think that also happened second by second. So I got liberated from this feeling of being pushed out and all the kind of emotion that brings, to feeling quite excited and powerful in being pushed up. And then what happens? As our consciousness, so we attract things into our world, right? If I had felt pushed out and I'd let myself go with that feeling of being pushed out, I'm sure I would have kept getting that feeling. You know, there would be maybe 4 seats in a car and I would be the 5th person. You know, we find ourselves, this kind of thing starts happening when my consciousness is in that. Is it your experience? It's like you attract these situations to yourself. But I attract these. I know I attract these situations to myself according to my consciousness. But when I had that feeling of being pushed up, you know, then all kinds of opportunities, wonderful opportunities, presented themselves to me. And I really was pushed up in many ways. In fact, you know, to be honest, it was before being offered this opportunity to work with the Future of Power. And I've been living in India now in different centres. Luckily, I speak enough Hindi to get by. And so I've been able to live with Indian sisters, you know, for the last 6 months. And I've enjoyed it so much. I've learnt so much about myself, about what it is to, you know, live in India, to be in a different culture. So I've been so grateful for this particular experience that I've been having. But if I had let myself get stuck in that pushed out, I wonder where I would have ended up. You know, I'm sure it wouldn't have been in the same place I am now. So consciousness is such a big thing. And as, you know, we all hear, we have a choice. We always have a choice. And the choice that we always have is the way we see things, right? The way we see things, the way we are using our thoughts. And we can always go into negative thoughts or positive thoughts. It's our choice. We don't always feel we have that choice, but in reality, it's my mind. These thoughts are my thoughts. They are my creation. So I always have a choice how I'm seeing things. And so consciousness, awareness is very much the seed of my power. But also the other aspect is God's power, you know, connecting with this amazingly unlimited energy. And, you know, there's all kinds of ways we can describe, you know, our experience of God. We couldn't call it Baba, but one of the Dadis, Tikam Dadi Herde Pushpa, who was in the south, interestingly, she never called Baba Baba. She didn't want to call Baba Baba because she said, it's a bit too familiar. I want to keep realizing that he is God. You know, so sometimes it's nice to have this word Baba, so we feel close and, you know, it's a very sweet relationship. But awareness, again, you know, often I feel I like to use the word God. And interestingly, when I was growing up, I didn't like this word God. I was an atheist from the age of 11, refused to go to a Catholic high school because I just could not accept this idea of God. And that's another story. But, you know, this word God was something very uncomfortable, maybe even for the first 20 years in Brahmin life. You know, it was just the word God was not a word I felt drawn to. And yet more and more I'm feeling this sense of God, you know, and it's awesome. awesome kind of awareness to have at any time. Even during the day, sometimes I just think, we are here in God's home. We are here as students in God's university, and even after all these years of being in Gyan, it excites me. In fact, maybe more than ever, because the realization, the awareness of what this is, I think we often have it in the beginning, and as we go along, we get kind of maybe ordinary, and then, it's a matter of increasing and increasing this awareness of what's really going on. And so, there's been all kinds of experiences that I've had in my Brahmin life with Baba, but just one also that I could share with you. As I said, I went to Hong Kong for 3 months. That's what I was asked to do, go for 3 months, and stayed 21 years. And Hong Kong's not a particularly easy place to live. And after 16 years, I really felt, I think I've had enough. I really want to leave. I don't want to be here anymore. And it came from, that kind of feeling that I just need to get out of here. But when I talked to Daddy Janki, she said, "Oh, who else will take care? Please go back, stay there, we need you there." And then I was thinking, how am I going to change my mind? Because if I'm going to stay, I have to be happy. I don't think I can stay if I'm not happy. I don't think it's even healthy, and I don't know how I would stay if I wasn't happy. So how am I going to now make myself happy to stay here? And I at Amrit Vela, I had that kind of awareness. I'll have to just work on making myself happy being here. And thinking, how long is that going to take? And how am I going to do that? And, But amazingly, I went back, and took a shower and got ready for class. And when I came to class, I sat on the gadi, conducted meditation for half an hour before the murli. And in that half an hour, Baba had completely rearranged my head. And at the end of that half an hour, I was happy to be in Hong Kong. And people would say to me, just as they do when you live in a foreign country, how long do you think you'll continue to live here? And I'd say, I'll probably die here. I mean, I'm here. And I felt comfortable about it. I didn't have any resistance. I felt quite happy, And that was not my effort, right? I was thinking I need to make this effort, but I didn't make the effort. I just sat in yoga for half an hour. Baba rearranged my head, and I had a different awareness. You must have had some experiences like this yourself, And this is, I think, the magic of yoga. And also what Baba says, when we have courage, he helps. So probably there was some courage in, accepting that challenge to stay on. But Baba does the rest. And so, there's nothing like yoga in comparison, I think, to meditation. I mean, we can do a certain amount of self-awareness and self-realization, and, we can, go quite a distance on the journey of meditation. But how do you make these kinds of shifts, and how do we get the kind of power that we get from Baba through only our own efforts and our own kind of meditation? And so I see that it's also kind of a position that we need to be in, of making effort, taking, connecting with Baba and allowing that kind of help. Is it help? I don't know. There's probably a better word for it. But we can explore that later. But, making effort, taking help from Baba or letting Baba influence me, and being stable on the drama. Because even if you are having kind of a good self-awareness, having a good connection, drama is going to also throw up all kinds of things. It's not because we're not meditating or not having yoga that scenes and situations come in front of us that we then have to deal with. So I think there's a position that is kind of what they called aligned, that we kind of align ourselves with ourself, with Baba, and with drama. And I find when I'm in that sweet space, everything just goes like magic. Even if things are going wrong, or not wrong, as they can't go wrong in the drama, can they? Even things that are presenting themselves to me, they just become part of the journey, when I can position myself. And it's a bit like a non-attachment to the way I think things should be. Because that's what we also have to. It's not just being detached from people, being detached from the body, being detached from, material things. It's not just that. But it's also being detached from what I want to happen, what I expect to happen, because things will happen. And I don't have a control over the things that happen. So I need to also be not attached to how I want things to be, because things are as they are. I'm not saying I can do all of this. I'm just saying that when I can get myself into that sweet space of being in the center of these three kind of energies, and that's what I see, that the energy of the soul, the energy of matter, the drama, and the energy of God. And it's a matter of, being in harmony with these three. And so being in a state of power is also being in a certain position. As Baba says, we need to set ourselves on the seat. So it's like a position that I can bring myself in. And if I'm not in that position, then any one of these three things will not be in balance, because sometimes we make too much effort and don't kind of take enough help from Baba, and then we get tired. And I think we have a habit of this because we haven't kind of been with Baba for so many thousands of years. Baba wasn't always kind of there for us, so we've got used to working on our own. When there's a situation, we try and work it out, we try and fix it. And I still do that, I find, even though I know Baba's there, and if I can connect, things will go a lot smoother and often just work themselves out. I forget, and I start worrying or trying to fix the situation, the problem, the person, whatever. It's such a habit to labor, as Baba says, rather than, remember some years ago Baba was emphasizing, use me, So funny, no? God sitting there saying, use me, you don't use me enough. And I know I still, after all these years, still I don't use Baba enough. Still I come into trying to fix something or think about it. I'm surprised, but that just shows our lack of awareness. So when we, make too much effort, it also just makes us stressed. And I remember a beautiful thing that Baba said when Didi Manmohini left the body. Somebody asked Baba, so did she reach the Kamatit stage? Did she reach perfection? That she's now left the body. And Baba said, no, but I gave her a scholarship. Because she always helped Baba at a time of need, so I helped her at her time of need. And I thought that was so comforting for me, because I felt I don't have to worry about reaching perfection. I just have to do my best. You know, if I do my best, Baba will do the rest. That's the faith I think that we need to have, because if we start to look at the time, look at our sanskars, we can get a bit worried that we might not make it. But when we, just have this honesty, and, like Sudesh Didi was saying today, the main thing is to clean ourselves, to clean the soul, to clean up our act. So if I can just work on having a very pure heart, a pure intention, if I can keep that, then wouldn't Baba help? Wouldn't he? If we were just very pure in our intention, in our effort, and did our best, then I think he's bound in that way to help us. And of course we have to do that by following Srimat, and he can't help us if we're not keeping within the lines of the maryadas, and so he can't. It's not in Baba's hands to help if we don't have courage. Baba can't help. So if we want Baba's power, there's a certain condition to that. It's like Baba once said in a murli, he can't just make everyone kings, because that wouldn't work. He can't just help everyone. He can't help us. But we can kind of deserve, or we can align ourselves by having courage. He's bound to help us. So it's like wouldn't like to use the word contract, because that sounds a little bit Lokkic, but it's like a bondage almost that I'm putting Baba in. If I have courage, then that's the deal. If I have courage, then I get God's help. And that's what he said. He said, I can help if you have courage. I can't just give blessings, meaning something for nothing, but I am there. And there's certain kind of ways in which we can take God's power. And we should understand those. Because if we're just praying for it in a way, like wishing for it, hoping for it, we're not doing much more than bhakti. So knowledge is, of course, a very great empowerment for us, because when we really understand all the aspects, then we know how it works, and otherwise it doesn't work. Sometimes I think still, as Brahmins, we sit in yoga and hope that Baba will help us. I don't think so. I don't think that's what Baba's teaching us. And so we have to understand these things. And knowledge is so powerful. I don't know, I think in the West it's revered, but certainly in Asia it is so revered. Knowledge, teachers, masters, gurus, there's such a high kind of value put on this. And I remember one time when I was, I used to often go to China, and just one example of knowledge. When I used to go to China, I would meet with people who had been through the Cultural Revolution, and this was like the early 80s, so they just were coming out of that whole situation. And there was a lady who had so much sorrow in her eyes and so much pain. She had studied fine art at university. She was a very wealthy lady living a very high life. Because of that, with this kind of communist system, she was sent out to the Gobi Desert, and she said that she was just like an animal that could talk. She would forage for food, and, all her hands were all gnarled, and, her husband had been shot, her son defected to Taiwan, pretty miserable story. And she asked me why she had suffered so much. And I felt quite uncomfortable because I haven't really suffered much at all in this life. So I thought, I was giving her all the gyan, giving her all the gyan of why we suffer. But at the same time, I was feeling somewhat uncomfortable because I thought, it's all theory, it's not coming from any experience. But the next time I saw her, half of the sorrow at least was gone. And she said that. I said, how are you? And she said, 50% of the sorrow's gone from what you told me. It really opened my eyes and it's helped me to think in a new way. And I thought, wow, I think I hadn't realized how powerful this knowledge is, even if we don't carry the experience. So knowledge itself, I kind of probably thought I have to have the experience to speak. But just seeing how much power there was in that. And then, I'd heard a class from Mohini Ben, and she was giving a class on karma, and she was saying that if we have a debt and we pay the debt, it's finished. But if we keep thinking, oh, I paid this much money to this person, I gave this much money to this person, every time I think of it, I feel the heaviness of it and the loss, and I feel what it was like to part, with this money. Or if we've gone through some suffering and we keep thinking about it, we keep experiencing that sorrow. So I told her, because she kept talking about all this sorrow, so I said to her, if you don't mind, I don't mind listening to all of this, but it's not helping you. So if you don't mind, whenever you start talking about the past and the sorrow that you have gone through, can I change the subject? Can I take us out of that conversation and, move on? Because as long as you keep feeling it and experiencing it, you're keeping yourself in that sorrow. So she agreed. She understood this point and she agreed. So whenever she would bring it up, I would change the subject, take her forward, each time I went there, I spent like 1 or 2 days. It wasn't like I was there for long. But when I visited again after maybe 4 to 6 months, her eyes had a sparkle of happiness. It was just amazing to see the change in her. And she said, I've stopped thinking about the past. Now I'm thinking about the future. And my son is going to come and visit me. And she hadn't seen him for 20 years or something. He was in Taiwan. Taiwanese at that time weren't able to get visas to China. But how, again, when we change, our world changes. And that's what they say, when our drishti changes, our smriti, our consciousness, our awareness, our vritti, our attitude, our drishti, the way we see things, then our shrishti, the world, also changes. And so that was a good lesson for me also, seeing so clearly the power that we have in our life. And her life changed, things got better. And that was just a very clear example of using knowledge to empower not just myself but also others, but how powerful our knowledge is. And I remember going to a hospital once, and this lady was Christian, and we used to work with the cancer support group, and and I used to kind of tell her things about this meditation. When I went to Madhuban, I went back to Hong Kong, and she was in hospital. And when I went back, as soon as I walked in and was walking up to the bed, she said, what did she say? She said, I don't believe in all of this stuff. She said that to me as I was walking in. I don't believe in all of this stuff, with quite a... And then as I got near the bed, she said, but it's helped me when nothing else has. It was so funny because she was, I think, quite resistant, and yet it was working, And in fact, when she left the body, even though she was a Christian, she told her husband to put in the paper, instead of giving flowers, to give the money to the Raj Yoga Center. Yeah, and her husband for 10 years used to send me a Christmas card every year. But how powerful this knowledge is, even when people are so resistant to it, and don't want it. But if there's truth, we have all these filters, right, because of our journeys, our sanskars, like me, this word God, and I didn't want to believe in God, but when I sat to meditate, I experienced Baba. So I kept saying, to myself, but I don't want to believe in God. God's for weak people. It's just a crutch. I don't want to believe in God. But I kept getting the experiences. So, that's when we find our truth. Of course, that is so powerful. And all of us, I'm sure all of us changed so much, right? Instantly when we found what we were looking for. And in fact, Baba says we should remember that second that really did it for us. I don't know if you know your second. Some people remember it and some people don't. But for me, the second, I would say, was when the person who was giving me the course, in fact I had quite a few teachers, Ken, Charlie, others, but the one that I don't even know who said it, but I was told, you have found what you've been looking for so many births. And I remember I was on, the second lesson. I didn't accept all of this, but it hit me like an arrow. You found what you've been looking for so many births. And I remember having tears hearing that and feeling this was the second. Even though I didn't know anything much about the BKs or the whole knowledge, but that just went through I knew it when he said it. You found what you've been looking for so many births. So when we are, like Papa says, pierced by the arrow of knowledge, it's like we die alive. That's when the real change starts to come. We have to then start to let go of attitudes, beliefs, limitations, all of these things as we get kind of shot by this arrow. So do you know the second? Do you remember the second? How many know the second? Oh, quite a few. Most, actually, know their second. Yeah. And it's good to go back to that also, because that's the seed, and, it's good to find those seeds and talk to ourselves. Like one time I asked myself, what is it that takes me away from Baba? Why is it that sometimes I can't remember Baba? What is it that's really the main seed of the problem? And for me, it was I and my. I don't know if everyone gets the same one, but when I'm not remembering Baba, it's because I'm thinking, oh, I wasn't told, I wasn't invited, I, or even that I've got so much to do. But certainly for me, that's what it is. And that helps me, because when I am not connected, if I can remind myself, oh, you must be getting back into this I and my, then it's quick to shift out of it, because I know the seed of this weakness. Maybe you can think of yours. What stops you from connecting and feeling Baba's power? So it could be good to make this a little interactive. So is there a microphone, please? You have any questions or comments or share your experiences? Yeah. Do you want to just come up and get the microphone? Can you come up and get the microphone, because I think it won't reach.
I heard you talk about meditation and yoga, as in yoga, in the I am love, and also Baba, the connection with Baba is a connection of love. But what about the murli? Because Baba said also that the love for Baba means love for murli, and what about the murli as a source of love?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, of course, Baba means murli. I kind of put them together because, you know, these are the teachings that Baba is giving us. And so, as Baba says, if we love him, we love the murli, and the murli is the source of everything. It's not only a love letter from Baba, but it's also all the wisdom, all the knowledge that we need to empower ourselves. And this is what Baba's doing, because he's not coming to Golden Age, right? He's making us sovereigns. He's making us masters, which is quite amazing, but the murli is the basis for everything. And, you know, like I think he was saying the other day also that it's, you know, it's just like a mirror. We can't go without the murli, because like last night sitting in Daddy's class, you know, I mean, I've been in Gyan so long, but everything Daddy said was so important for me to hear last night, you know. So, and I think that's connected with Baba, because Baba, you know, like we all feel Baba speaks through us. So Baba speaks through Daddy. Baba speaks to us. So, you know, it's not a matter of even being impressed with anyone, because everything, I think, is from Baba. Baba heard my heart. He spoke to me through Daddy. But I wouldn't, I mean, I love Daddy, but I thank Baba. So, because, you know, even she's only trying to connect us with Baba. Is that right? I mean, so everything's Baba, Baba, Baba. Like Baba said in the Mula yesterday, that faith is to only belong to one. Only belong to one constantly. And so, yeah, it's all yoga. And it's Baba that talks to me when I hear the Murli, when I hear any classes, even if I meet someone over lunch and they say something useful, I think it's Baba talking to me. Any other comments, questions, experiences? I can keep talking, but I think it's nice if we have some interaction.
Sister Morni, please correct me. Just now you say we don't ask Baba's love like bhakti, but we love Baba. We want to experience more and more Baba love. That's why we are here. So what is the difference? We don't ask, but of course we need more experience Baba's love.
Yeah.
So how to system?
Yeah.
I mean the thought of that asking and experienced. Of
Yeah.
course we want to experience, but some of time we ask Baba, we need your help. You want to have a love, your love.
But I'm asking, does it work? When you ask Baba, does it work? Or does it work if we come from a space of knowledge? Because knowledge says, I am love. So if I can bring my awareness into the right track, you know, Baba says, I am love. So if I can remind myself that I am love, then the connection with Baba will be much easier and quicker than if I feel I'm just a weak soul, I need God's help. Because yoga is union. And it's like with any relationship, the closer we are, the more we are equal, the more beautiful that relationship. Because we can recognize each other, understand each other, connect, which is what yoga is, connect with each other. So in any relationship, if someone is like in a position of authority and I'm subservient, it's not the best relationship, is it? In fact, it's often uncomfortable. I mean, we have different roles that we play, that's okay, but we don't need to feel subservient. You know, like Daddy is the head of this organization, you know, so of course I would give respect, and, you know, there's a relationship on a worldly level of parent and child and teacher and student. So, you know, we're in that relationship. But again, with Daddy, you know, Baba says we have to become like Baba. You know, we have to become like Daddy. She's, of course, a lot of steps closer to Baba. But again, you know, not being in any kind of bhakti, not being any kind of awe in that sense of someone, but, you know, learning and being like them. You know, when I was in Spain, you're from Spain? I remember I did a tour of Spain some years ago, and in Spain everyone believes in God. So I said to the people, I said, I've heard everyone in Spain believes in God. They'd say, sí. And so I asked them, sit for a few minutes just with God and ask God directly, do you want me to worship you, or do you want me to be like you? So, you know, these were public mostly, Brahmins also, and people would just do this little exercise. And everyone, except for one person, said, God gave me the feeling he wants me to be equal to him, not to worship him. And actually, this is not a Christian concept. You know, in fact, in Christianity, if you say that you'll be equal to God, it's called heresy. It's a sin in Christianity. And yet, that's what they said from their experience, you know. And when I did it the first time, I had such a beautiful experience, because I felt Baba saying to me, I don't just want you to be like me, I want you to go higher. You know, of course, I don't think we can, but the feeling was like, I want everything for you. Just like a parent wants everything for their child. They want them to have more than they ever had. There was that kind of incredible love in the experience. So Baba wants us to be equal to him. But it's hard to take that on, isn't it? It's quite a big thing to take on, being equal to God. We can't even say it to people outside. It's too big. But Baba wants us to be equal to him. So we have to move up. And I think when I started to think in this different way, I started to feel that, you know, Baba says, always puts things in such a big way. You know, he calls us even Master Gods, Master Satguru, Master Purifiers. You know, he gives us such big titles, and he says we have to be this constantly. Put up your hand if you can be this constantly. And I don't know about you, but I always feel, you know, it's not so easy to jump up to that high level that Baba wants us to be. But when I change this consciousness and awareness to soul consciousness, I am love, I am a being of power, I am a being of purity, then I think, yeah, I can get to that level that Baba expects me to be and wants me to be, because I am that. I'm just not accepting it. But I am. Everything that Baba says I am, I am. In reality, I am. But it's so hard to accept it, because we have very limited beliefs about ourselves and others also. But we need to jump into that higher consciousness, because that's how Baba talks in the Murli. He doesn't say, you should try and do this and do a bit of this. It's always like right up there. So we need to make this jump now. So my feeling is time is short, and I need to really empower my awareness and shift my awareness into a much higher level than just like an effort maker, you know, something ordinary. Because Baba keeps telling us we're not ordinary. You know, we think, you know, someone like Christ or Buddha was such a, you know, they're revered, they're such great souls, but we are deities. You know, we are such high beings. But it's not, I think, that easy for us to stay in that consciousness and awareness, but we have to, and we have to do it quick. We don't have a lot of time now to be at that level Baba's expecting us to be at, do we? And it's not a matter of how many years in Gyan, it's just a matter of making this switch, you know? It can be done so quickly. But we just keep thinking in a very low level, very limited level. So try it, you know, and that's the thing. Whenever I hear something from someone, I try it, you know. So try this, sitting with Baba and feeling that and first of all, bringing yourself into this consciousness that I am a being of love. And Baba is the ocean of love. And we can meet in this connection, because then we're on the same wavelength. Otherwise it's like AM and FM. We're not connected. It's body conscious, and this is a soul and energy. It's like, you know, a monkey can communicate with another monkey, a fish with a fish, a human with a human. But to communicate with soul, Baba is only pure soul. I need to be a soul. I can't be in the consciousness of the body. I can't connect if I'm in the consciousness of the body. I'm on a different wavelength. I'm a different species to Baba. You know, I've got to at least recognize that I'm of the same species, in a sense, like soul and soul. Because Baba's not a human. We're not going to see something and feel something physically. Any other question, comment? Can you come? Thanks. I don't know how we stay switched on like this all the time, but you can see the example of Dadi Janki. She's so switched on. She's like in high beam all the time, just, you know, and once she says she worries about us because we're not.
This is something, a comment around effort. And I like what you were saying before about if we make too much effort on our own, it makes us tired. And it occurred to me that sometimes I make effort, and I think I make it on my own because I don't want to be lazy. So how to make effort with Baba, not be lazy, but make effort along with Baba and not get tired.
Yeah. I actually I made efforts in a particular area for about 16, 18 years that was totally a waste. So I'm speaking from experience. You know, living in a different culture, you know, I was making so much effort to be accepted in that culture and connect with that culture, and I was still feeling it wasn't really happening. And I was getting very tired of this effort, and I said to Dadi Janki, after years, you know, like 16, 18 years, I said, I've tried so hard to, you know, bridge this gap, to, you know, make efforts to come into, you know, a closer connection, but it's still not working. And what can I do? I'm so tired because it's just not working. And she said to me, don't make effort, just be a Mahavir. In other words, just change your consciousness. And I thought about it, and then I stopped making efforts, and I thought, isn't this being lazy? Like, I'm not making any efforts, I'm just being myself. I started to eat what I want to eat. I didn't try to eat what they like. You know, because all these things you make an effort to mix with the culture. And I thought, oh, if I don't have to make effort, I can just be who I am. And in fact, it was better because then I was more myself, you know? I mean, pretty dumb, no? Much effort for so many years, making myself so tired. And Daddy just said, don't make effort, just be a Mahavir. So that was a big lesson, that we can make a lot of effort in the wrong direction. Like an example, I was in the car with my father and we were late for something. You know, in Australia you've got these big highways. We were going like 110 kilometers an hour, and I said to him, I think we're going in the wrong direction. You're making a lot of efforts, but I think it's in the wrong direction. And it was. But often, you know, we do that kind of thing. We make a lot of efforts, but it's not even in the right direction. So we have to be pretty smart with efforts. And, you know, because Baba, as I said, hasn't been in our world, even this life, for so many years, we're used to making efforts. And we also often do feel lazy if we don't make effort. Like one time here, I was asked to find 3 people for an interview. They were guests who were here and they were leaving in the afternoon. So, you know, in Madhuban, usually when you think of anyone, they just appear, right? Right? So I thought, I think if I just think of them, they will appear at the right place at the right time. I'm sure it will work. But if I just do that, people will say I was lazy because I'm not looking for them. So I made a lot of effort. I called Pandav Bhavan, I made a lot of effort to leave messages here, and I walked here and there thinking they might be, I made a lot of effort to find them. And then I went to the place where we were supposed to meet at that time. 2 came from this direction, 1 came from this direction. And I said, did you get my message? They said, no. What message? So it was a very funny experience because I knew I could, just, like in Madhuban, that works like magic. But I felt, people will think I was just lazy if I say, yeah, I sent them the thought. So it's a very funny kind of thing to work out effort. But certainly it's something we should be aware of, because I don't think, this thing of like getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning but getting exhausted. You see a lot of people getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, but then they sleep all through Amrit Vela, they sleep through class. It's not empowering. But I have experienced Baba waking me up for 6 months every day at 2 o'clock, and I didn't need any extra sleep in the afternoon. It was really like a help from Baba. It was a great gift. For 6 months I was working also at that time. And, I feel if Baba wakes me up, I should get up. Sometimes I'm lazy. Baba will wake me and I look and I think, it's only 2 o'clock, and I turn over and go back to sleep. But I think if Baba's waking me up and I get up, it will be good. So it's quite tricky, isn't it, working out effort. We're all, I think, quite good effort makers, but accurate effort is something quite subtle. We are often gross in our thinking of what effort is. But I read a saying, and it's not different to what Baba tells us, but somehow the words work for me, and it said, few leaders realize how little they have to do. Few leaders realize how little they have to do. And I started practicing that in 1992. It's been magic. We furnished the whole center without spending a cent, just on thought. Honestly. Everything came, the carpet, the seating, the sofas, everything came. And this is what, was it Daddy saying the other day? That in 1 second we can do what would take 10 minutes, So this is like this less effort and more result. But I've been experiencing this since 1992, and it works. Less effort and more result. but I've got to have the right kind of thoughts. You know, like what I think I was doing before is sometimes having, for example, expectation. A task needs to be done and you start thinking, oh, so-and-so could help. They could give a little bit of time. Why don't they help? They'll never help. But just keeping the thoughts pure that, you know, this is what would be good, and if it's meant to be, it will be. It's Baba's task. People come from, I don't know, the sky. I don't know where they come from. The right person to do the right task. Because the attitude is pure. So, you know, pure thoughts. And in fact, if you study Buddhism, this is what they teach. You know, the Eightfold Path is just right thought, right speech, right concentration, right mindfulness. And it sounds so easy. It's like all there in 16 words. But to practice it, right thoughts, right awareness, right concentration, even right concentration. Like meditation is the balance between relaxation and concentration. Most of us, when we relax, we're not concentrated much. And when we concentrate, we're not relaxed. But meditation is the art of concentration and relaxation. So right concentration is not like tense, it's not hard, it's relaxation and concentration together. It's light. So one more question, yeah, then we'll finish.
Om Shanti, sister. Thank you so much for your sharings, your practical sharings. One that moved me when you talked about how you did with when you felt left out, and then you turn it into going up very fast. And I was intrigued with that, and I started thinking about my own process. Even before I started Gyan, I moved from Venezuela to New York and went to school in New York, and I had to deal with being left out all the time, because you start with a new culture, you start a new profession, you're dealing with all the cliques that are there already in a professional world also. So it's all my life, it's always been. Now coming into Gyan, then you have to deal with, oh, this is a whole new culture. How do you fit in? What do you have to do? So I like to thank you for that practical sharing, and maybe talk a little more about how it works instantly, if you can. Thank you.
I'm glad that I focused on self-respect from the beginning. You know, I started off as a person with not bad self-respect. I mean, people would have seen me as quite a confident person, probably. But I think all of us have a big challenge with self-respect. And, you know, after all of my challenges in my Brahman life, I would say, is because of a lack of self-respect. And it still happens, less and less and less, but still. And I think this is what we have to just keep bringing ourselves back to, our self-respect, because it seems drama always keeps, at least for me, giving me these situations where, you know, I'm often in something and not in the same thing. You know, like I'll be in these, you know, because I've been with Baba for so long, I'll be in these little picnics with the daddies one day and not the next day. And, you know, so sometimes you're in, sometimes you're out. And I'm sure you get it in your own ways as well, you know. So, but what I've worked with over the years, often after taking a lot of sorrow from feeling left out, I just keep working on getting over this, because, you know, I can't have self-respect if I am dependent on being included, being recognized, something like that. And, you know, it's just the biggest thing, I think, to keep coming back to what I'm here for. That's the big question too. I'm here to change myself. I'm not here to be accepted by everyone. I'm not here to be seen as being special or something like that. But I would say still there's a seed of it inside me. I'm not completely free from it, but I acknowledge that that's my problem. I've stopped blaming anyone, for leaving me out or not, That's the biggest thing, I think, when we stop blaming others, that, oh, they didn't include me, they didn't, give me this respect. I mean, you might not say it, but it's often in the heart. So not blaming anyone and just saying, I still need to work on this. There's still more of this lesson that I need. But I've come a long way, long way, but I can still see there's a bit more to go. I just keep reminding myself what I'm here for, because we can get lost, I'm here to become pure. I'm here to be with God. I'm here because I want to realize myself, and I'm not here to be seen. And somebody said that very nicely. We either think of ourselves as the seer or the seen. And the seer is very interesting, because in English, it's a word that means a wise person, a seer, S-E-E-R. It's a wise person. So I also try to keep reminding myself to be the seer and not the seen. Because when we're the seen, we're very body conscious. We want to be seen. But when we're the seer, we can see the drama. And we feel very, that sweet space inside of. It's like that pure thing of not needing to be loved, what I started with. I'm in Baba's eyes. That's all that's important. And Baba should be pleased with me. Baba, I have this relationship with Baba, and that's the only one, in that sense, that really, really matters. Of course, relationships with people do indicate to me, whether I'm keeping a balance in many areas. So it's not that I don't care at all what people think, but only in a sense of a little bit of a feedback. I shouldn't think too much about it. And this is what I think meditation's about. It's connecting me back to myself. Because we don't start there. We're not connected to ourselves. People in the world are not connected to themselves. They're always thinking what other people are thinking of them, what other people think about them, what they feel other people think they should do. It's such a trap. What? Yeah, we have to finish, so I can't go into this much, but that's a whole big question. She's saying when we have this self-respect, then it can seem like ego. And there is a very fine line. But ego is when I'm, thinking about what others see me as. Self-respect is seeing myself from the inside. And ego is when I care what people think of me. It's opposite to self-respect. If I have real self-respect, it doesn't matter what people think about me. So I heard a little bell. It probably means time's up. So Om Shanti.